The recording has started, so I'm going to hand over to the Chair, Councillor Adja-Ovac.
Thank you. Good evening and welcome to the Licensing Subcommittee today, the 30th of January. My name is Councillor Adja-Ovac and I'm the Chair of Licensing. Before we begin, if I can have the councillors on the committee to introduce themselves. Firstly, I'll start with the introduction. I'm Councillor Adja-Ovac, Member of Northumberland Park and Chair of Licensing. Members, if you can introduce yourselves.
Councillor Lester Buxton, Crouch End Ward.
Councillor Barbara Blake, Seven Sisters Ward.
Thank you. Filming at meetings. Please note this meeting is being recorded and will be available for public viewing. Are there any apologies for absence?
There are no apologies, Chair.
Thank you. Are there any items of urgent business?
No items of urgent business.
Do members have any declarations of interest? Thank you. Summary of procedure. The procedure of the meeting has been emailed to all participants by the clerk. For the purposes of any members of the public watching, we will first hear from the licensing officer. After that, the applicant will present their case to the committee and the objectors will have the opportunity to ask questions. Then the objectors will present their representation and the committee and applicant will have the opportunity to ask questions. All parties will then have the opportunity to sum up and then the meeting will conclude to allow the committee to deliberate and reach a decision. This decision will then be provided in writing within 5 working days of this meeting. Additionally, I'm going to note the ground rules for this hearing. If you wish to speak, please raise your hand and direct all communication via the chair. For those who are joining the meeting online, please ensure your cameras are open and that you are muted when you're not speaking. If you have technical difficulties, please use the chat function. Please do not use the chat function for putting formal questions to the committee. We'll take all papers as read unless there is anything you wish to draw our attention to. All speakers will be allocated 5 minutes to speak. When speaking, please be succinct and do not exceed the allocated time unless you request for an extension of time, which is at the discretion of the chair. Please do not share addresses of speakers, and in the event that there be several speakers for each party, please avoid repetition and perhaps consider having a spokesperson to address all concerns. 6th item, which is the application for a variation of a premises license at District 22, 83 Maze Road, Wood Green, London, N22 6TN. Ms. Barrett, please can you introduce your report?
Sorry, Chair. Do you want to do introductions around the table?
Yeah, that's fine.
Yeah. So I'm Dale Barrett, Licensing Team Leader.
I'm Sadiq Rahman, Legal Officer for Haringey.
I'm Nazir Chowdhury, clerk to this committee and principal committee coordinator.
Thank you. I'll ask speakers once we get to them to speak. Yeah.
Okay.
Chair.
Sorry, before you start, I apologise, I do have to be late.
That's fine. I'll let you come to that point.
Yes, Chair. I was advised by your Cabinet Services officer that we would request 25 minutes. I hope you've seen that email, and I refer really to Article 6 of the Human Rights Open to a Fair Trial. We cannot possibly summarise absolutely all the points in just 5 minutes. This issue was raised at the previous meeting. I understand it's not part of your written protocol. It's just simply custom and practice. At the last meeting, we weren't advised of it. This time, we have been advised of it. So I think that is a significant change. But nonetheless, we did email a request to be allowed up to 25 minutes to present our case.
Yes, I'm aware of that request and I was going to come to that. I do allow that 25 minutes, but I'll come to that point once the licensing officer has completed.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you, Chair. So the panel has before them today the variation application for District 22 Limited, situated at 83 Maze Road, N22. They're seeking to extend the permitted hours for the sale of alcohol from 11 a.m. each day. Currently, it is from 4 p.m. each day, and that will take them through until 23:30 Sunday to Thursday, and on a Friday and a Saturday, it will take them up to midnight if that were to be granted. It's also to remove a condition. So the conditions on the area at the back of the premises, the back shisha, to be closed at 22:30 each day, and for that to be replaced with the back shisha area to be closed at midnight, Sunday to Thursday, and on the Friday and Saturday trading sessions until midnight for those days. You have in the pack, Chair, the application and the plan of the premises. There are representations received from other parties on this occasion. There are no representations from responsible authorities. The subcommittee may take the following options. It may grant the application as requested, or grant the application whilst imposing additional conditions or altering the way the proposed operating schedule has been put forward, or exclude any licence for activities to which the application relates, or to reject the whole or part of the application. And as the panel knows, full details of the reason for that to be given. Chair, at section 3, you have, Chair, the background details there of the premises from 2016. At 3.3, you've got the hours that's currently shown on the current premises license. The premises has had a number of temporary event notices, and those are also shown in the report there, Chair. Just to draw your attention, Chair, there is a noise management plan in the bundle of papers, and I'm sure Mr. Don will give more clarity to this, but that noise management plan was actually drawn up at a time when a temporary event notice was due to come to a hearing. So some of the wording in there is a bit out of step with what's being requested on this current application. And also, Chair, within the plan, I note that it's saying that it's going to have dB noise levels nearest noise sensitive locations and stuff, but there are actually no dB noise levels specified in the plan. So, Mr. Don will no doubt want to talk you through what their methodology is in and how that plan came about and what they're going to be hoping to show from that. You have the policy implications at section 4. Human rights matters are at section 5.1, Chair. And Chair, there I can leave, but you do have the number of residents here this evening who are here to speak on their behalf as to their concerns as to why they think the variation should not be granted, Chair. And there I'll leave if you have any questions for me.
Thank you, Ms. Barrett. Do members have any questions for the licensing officer? Just for clarification, I take it that the 710s that were applied for were granted.
They were granted, Chair. I believe one was originally rejected, but after some engagement with Mr. Don and the ASB officer, that also was permitted through.
Thank you. Does anyone else have any questions for Ms. Barrett before we move on?
Chair, if I may, is it the custom and practice for the licensing department to write specifically to local residents, pointing out that an application has been received for a variation or grant?
Yes, it is. We have a list of residents across the borough who have signed up and requested that anything in their area comes in. Can we please be notified? Yes, we send out notification to that. We have to honour that request. Yes.
Any further questions before we move on? Okay. Before we hear from the applicant, I understand the applicant has requested 25 minutes to present the application. I will allow the 25 minutes. In doing so, I will allow the objectors a collective time of 25 minutes as well. With 3 objectors, that would be around 8 minutes each. You'll each be informed once you have reached the time limit. Applicant, can you introduce yourselves and then present the application? Please remember you have 25 minutes. Thank you.
Not used to the mic when we're all so close. Good evening. My name is Bill Don from Silver Fox Licensing Consultants, and to my left I have
Maritan Yashari.
who is the DPS for District 22 and the Director of District 22 Limited, the premises licence holder.
You may present your case.
Ma'am, this is our application for a variation of an existing premises licence, and really it's in two parts. The first part is as a result of an oversight from the previous application for a grant, and that is to permit the sale of alcohol by retail from 11 a.m. in the morning. At the moment, the current premises licence begins at 1600 hours each day, but the intention is to open for lunch times and during the afternoon for food and so on. So we would ask that to be pulled back to 11 a.m. for each day. That falls in line with the roles of the public house and falls in line with previous premises licence conditions that have been, or authorisations that have been at the premises over the years. And I'm guessing that isn't particularly contentious. And it was an oversight that it wasn't included in the last application. The second part is that we wish to remove the conditions limiting the rear pub garden area at the back of the premises, which currently requires all patrons to leave by 22:30 hours each day, and to be replaced with that during the week, Sunday through to Thursday, the back area must be clear of all patrons by midnight, and a Friday and Saturday through to midnight for the following day. So Friday going into Saturday, Saturday going into Sunday. You will be aware that the premises have traded as a public house for forever, and it enjoyed a license, a pub license, back in the day of the 1964 Act. Over the last 10 years, really since 2005, it's had a bit of a checkered history, and I think we all acknowledge that the premises were taken to review some 6 years ago, and onerous conditions were placed on that. We were here only 2 months ago when the committee, and two of you were sitting on the committee at the time, decided to give a lot of weight to the representations and the previous history of the premises, and to continue with the limits of the use of the back garden area to 22:30. And having your licensing officer very kindly sent over the review papers for back in the day, and it was quite a catalogue of events and incidents relating to the premises, which are effectively running as a nightclub through till 3 in the morning and possibly beyond. Of course, my clients bought the business. At the time, the premises hadn't been licensed for 2 years, and this was because the then current premises license holder became insolvent. I'm not entirely sure of the details. The license lapsed, it went through to 28 days, nobody reapplied, and effectively there was a suspicion that the premises were running without a license for 2 years, and I believe there are investigations ongoing. I can't really comment on that. My clients, the directors of District 22, have invested a lot of their own money in acquiring the leasehold property to run it as a public house that has alcohol, serves food, and it also has effectively a beer garden on the outside. Now, I know this has been a checkered history. Was the rear garden area ever licensed in the first place pre-2005? I suspect it was under the old Magistrates Licensing Act, but it's not uncommon in my experience to come across that people have missed off the beer garden. At the last application, we gave that grant. on the application, and I don't want to have a rehearing of the previous one because we need to deal with it as a fresh application. But there is some merit to just look at. There was a huge amount of representations, not only from residents, and you'll hear from them later today, but also from the police, from licensing and all sorts of things. Unfortunately, they were not here at the hearing to be challenged on some of their findings. And a significant number of those allegations, and it was allegations, were actually before my client's time at the premises. So it looked very messy. It looked as if my clients were irresponsible operators, but the fact is they're not. They have a young child to look after. They've invested their personal savings in and so on. And because we weren't informed that we were limited to 5 minutes, we weren't as prepared as we should have been with a written submission. We've not made that mistake before, this time round. So we couldn't explore some of the objections, and it really looked like a terrible mess against my clients. But actually, in reality, they're new owners. They've invested heavily in the premises. They've had the benefit of some temporary event notices, which have gone smoothly. My understanding is, we understand there was even a complaint from one of the residents on Saturday, and the out of hours team turned up, parked outside, couldn't hear a thing. I don't know if that's reports has come back to you, to the licensing. We were tasked with putting together a noise management plan. That was slightly delayed, but there was slightly delays for your decisions being written to us in writing. It's just a long ongoing saga. But we did submit a noise management plan to environmental protection. I've had 2 conversations with them. It seems like tacit approval has been given to it. Of course, any noise management plan is a working document. I've been asked to refer to the plan. Part of the noise plan is that there are recordings being taken in the 4 key sensitive areas. We take one sound reading outside St John Daldy's house, next door to the Red House. One of the residents is represented here. Another one is on the corner of Maze Road, Coburg Road Junction. Another one is on the outside of our front door, and the other one, the other sound recording, is over the far side on the other side of Maze Road. Now, for those of you familiar with the area, and I assume that you are, Maze Road all day long is a very busy road. In fact, next door, just to the other side of Maze Road, there's a pedestrian crossing. The only way you're going to get across that road is to use the button to get across the road. Now, we have every week on a Friday and Saturday, when the door supervisors are on duty, we take sound recordings. It's recorded on a machine, on an app.
The officers took a picture on Saturday.
In fact, the officers took some photographs. We're not in a position to produce that today, but the officers did take it. We've recorded every hour in accordance with the noise management plan, and the average readings are between 58 and 60, maybe 61 decibels. Now, what does that mean? The way I'm speaking at the moment, I'm probably at 60 decibels. And of course, is there a noise nuisance? Well, that depends on the background noise. That area is quite busy, including Coburg Road and certainly Maze Road. There's a lot of background ambient noise. So my clients are actively, in accordance with their noise management plan, monitoring what is going on in those key sensitive points. And they're doing it week in, week out, and the records are on file. The loudest place is immediately outside the front door, and even then that's only around 62 to 64 degrees decibel. So we maintain we are not creating a nuisance in the nearest noise sensitive residence properties. We're actively monitoring it. The premises is not authorised for music, so it's background music only. although I do take the point that under the Live Music Act, they can have music in the premises up until 11 p.m. But it is a lounge bar. I would also draw your attention to your officer said about the planning permission. A shisha lounge does under planning need planning consent, and I would make two observations on that. Firstly, the application for a shisha lounge was nothing to do with us. There was a previous owner. It was rejected. I'm not sure what the grounds were, but we don't operate as a shisha lounge. We operate as a public house. We serve alcohol, we serve food, and to comply with the no smoking regs, we have moved to electronic cigarettes and electronic shisha, which currently is lawful indoors. I have a feeling, and I know I spoke to one of your colleagues at length about the merits of e-shisha, and at some stage I suspect that situation may change. So nonetheless, there's a fantastic menu based around the Balkan foods, particularly kebabs and so on. We will hear from the residents, but we're looking for evidence, and we would not ask you to base your decisions on evidence. Yes, of course, the residents have to have a right to enjoy their life and their property, but my client also has a right to run a business and be given to have that opportunity to run a business to the extent that he can. And that is why we need the extension of the hours, because in reality, if we shut at 10:30, the last orders are at 9:30. Well, that's quite early. And we maintain, with the monitoring that we've done, there is no evidence to say that we are causing nuisance. If you refer back to the previous minutes, you'll see that actually none of the complaints were justified. And we've even had one over the weekend where a complaint has gone in and it's not been validated. Yes, there may be opinion about what might happen, but my clients deserve a chance with their ownership to move the business forward and trade to the hours that we've requested in this application. Chair, I think that's my submission.
Thank you so much. Do members have any questions for the applicant? Yeah.
Thank you very much for your time. First of all, with regards to the TENS license that you, the 7 TENS license that you put in, were they, was that an extension of the back garden as well? What,
Yes,
yeah.
it was.
Okay.
Yes, it's for the whole premises. So a temporary event notice isn't a license in itself. It's simply a notification to say licensable activities have taken place. But what it actually does is to overrule the conditions that may stop you doing what you want to do.
Okay.
So yes, we've completed 7 TENS and we haven't had any issues.
So, and that was the back garden was then closed at
Yes.
midnight.
At midnight,
Okay.
yes.
And then I feel like my microphone's a lot louder than everyone else's, but that's besides the point. And then going on to the noise impact report. So page 39 of the, anyway.
So of the bundle or
Of the bundle, yes.
just one moment,
Of the agenda pack.
I've just gone to sleep.
That's okay. Well, so this is also page 4 of 8 of the noise impact assessment.
Sorry, which page are you on?
Page 39 of the agenda pack.
Bear with me.
That's okay.
That's it.
Yep.
Yep.
So there's basically a background of the licensing that was granted at the last committee. However, I did come across the second bullet point of the conditions. The rear garden shisha area must be closed to patrons at midnight, basically. So that is the incorrect?
Well, it would be, we were required by the committee's commission to submit a noise risk assessment, which we did. And
Okay.
that is, as it stands at the moment, to be compliant with that condition. Now, an event management plan or a noise management plans are working documents. And if you saw fit to increase the operating hours, then that would have to be revised.
Okay.
It's a bit like a risk assessment. You know, it's fine until something goes wrong, and then you go back and review it, revisit it, and amend it accordingly.
So the noise impact assessment is based upon, sorry, Chair, that I'm going back and forth. So the noise impact assessment is based on the potential of having this condition.
No, this is sorry.
So bullet point 2 of the 3 main conditions.
Oh, the 3 main conditions.
The rear shisha area must be clear of patrons from midnight.
Yeah, I think I might have amended that in terms of the temporary event notice, because this is version 2 that's been printed, and I think we submitted to Craig somebody version 1.
Just for clarity, this was the version that was submitted with the variation application.
Yes.
The reason why it's come through, and I pointed out to you that I think this was actually for a 10s,
Yes.
an objective 10s.
So this
that
was
coming
for
to
the
committee.
10s, but there was a previous version that was submitted to comply with conditions requested at the last hearing when the licence was granted. So this was to match up with the 10 application.
Okay, I see. Okay, so
Straight to midnight.
I guess. Okay, so I haven't. Was that in the? This committee hasn't seen the noise impact assessment for this, for the non-10s. Is that?
We haven't seen the version 1 because I think if you've submitted it directly to the officer, it's not been sent through to the licensing team.
I did chase that with the other Mrs. Barrett. Minnie Barrett. Okay.
Right, okay.
Well, the situation is that we have done a noise assessment. Subject to what is agreed today, we will go back and revisit this and rework it.
Okay.
We've tried to avoid technical jargon within it. And that was the discussions that we had with the noise department. So it's simple to read. Everybody can understand it, or should be able to understand it. But as I said, this working document, and that was in respect of support the application for the hearing in relation to, or the potential hearing for the first temporary event notice, which was subsequently the counter notice was withdrawn.
Okay, so then thank you for not including too much technical detail, I guess, but I want to be reassured that it has been agreed with the environmental protection team and the noise team that this plan has kind of gone to them, and someone who has technical detail has.
It went weeks ago. We've not had a response. I have been chasing for a response. We did talk through it and the consent, and it seemed to be acceptable. That's hence my comment that it seems we've got tacit approval for it. But having said that, it is a working document. We work with festivals, event management plans and so on. It is subject to review and where improvements or deviations need to be included.
Yeah,
Fine, okay.
that's fine.
Yeah, and then within the report, sorry, I was thrown off slightly because it's not the version 1, but I didn't see much specifics about the noise impact on the area that we're focusing on today, which is the back garden. So and also in your deposition, you gave a good overview of the history, but specifically because for this application we are considering the back garden.
Indeed. So I was going to bring attention to that. So if you go to page 40 of your bundle, you see the location plan with the premises marked out in red, and in the blue dots are the noise monitoring points, which we have considered to be the most noise sensitive areas. So John Aldiss house, which is right in the corner with the red house, and that resident, Mr. Barnes, is here today. We've looked at outside number 18 across the other side of Coburg Road, and outside of number 100 in Maze Road, and also outside our front door, because following the conversations from the residents' complaints and so on for the previous hearing, we felt that that was the most noise sensitive point. So Maze Road, as we said, was an extremely busy road anyway. The concern is the garden area, and that is the key readings that we monitor. And in fact, my client has shared his number with Mr. Barnes, and they have been in communication over time if there's any concerns.
Yeah, I guess what I'm getting at is what, to my, again, non-technical knowledge, but soundproofing a garden is a lot more difficult to soundproofing a building.
Yes, there is a roof in a fair part of the building. It is enclosed to facilitate the smoking area. There's a retractable roof, which is, I think, in the application. That is subject to review again to see if we can enhance it. But as the officers were there on Saturday with the roof open, there was no noise nuisance. And these are the recordings that we've had.
Thank you.
In addition, as part of the noise management plan, we've gone through, we've adjusted all the speakers, the directions, so they're focusing down. They've actually moved some from this particular noise sensitive corner in Coburg Road. They've shifted all the speakers. So in order that we're directing sound away from any possibility of going across the road.
Thank you. Councillor Blake, do you have any questions?
I do. And firstly, let me apologise, Chair, for me forgetting to switch off my mobile phone, and apologise to you as well. I'm sorry about that. I do have a few questions and some points of clarification, if I may. And firstly, on page 40, I just want to understand. So these noise monitoring points, is that periodically someone goes out from your premises holding a machine?
We've got two things.
Thank you. And so how often do you go out with? I mean, just with the garden, I mean, if people are sitting outside and say there's someone who's got a loud voice or a loud laugh, who's, talking quite loud, or, but I mean, I mean, if someone complains and says there's, people are talking really loud or cheering or something like that, would you, I mean, are you able to go to clients that are eating in your restaurant or drinking and ask them to be quiet? I mean, I would have thought, let me just say, That's I don't know. So I'm saying, would that be difficult for you to do?
No, not on the style of the operation. I don't want to get picky on semantics about what is a pub, but it's more of a lounge bar where it's all table service at the back area. At the front, you can stand at the bar, order drinks, typical pub. Out the rear area, it is table service only. So therefore, it's much more manageable. It doesn't get riotous because they do serve food. They serve some pretty good food there as well. So it's got more of a restaurant atmosphere than just simply a beer garden in itself. But it is a beer garden. You can smoke out there when the roof is open. We're looking to tighten up the best ways of enabling that to be better and to be more protected. But nonetheless, the roof is open, but the walls are quite high. You'll see from the photographs in the report that the walls of the premises are probably 8 or 9 foot high. There is some roofing over the top, and the aperture for the smoking is over the other side, which extends roughly half of the roof space. It's on the far side, so the property backs onto an industrial factory area with numerous people. There's a gymnasium, there's a manufacturing companies there and so on round the back. So the aperture for the roof is over that side, not the nearest side to Coburg Road.
All right.
Any further questions?
That's you've answered them. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Okay, I've got a few questions I just wanted to ask. I noticed at page 23 of the agenda pack in relation to the application for variation under hours premises are open to the public. The opening hours for Friday and Saturday show midnight. Was this an admin error or oversight? Just wanted to get clarification. Page 23 of the agenda pack for Friday and Saturday. No, the opening hours, it says midnight instead of, I thought it was 0800 hours.
The opening hours was over 800 should they wish to, that's not the last time, should they wish to open for breakfast, but they won't be selling alcohol.
Yeah, it's just that it says midnight for the opening hours on the actual form. So I just wanted to know if that was just an admin error. Page 23, Friday and Saturday, it says midnight for, yeah.
Oh, no, that's not really that. It was to make sure there was no ambiguity. But actually, it is an ambiguity because what I was trying to demonstrate was it was yes, that's an ambiguity. Should be 800. Yes.
Thank you. Next question. The variation request for the back shisha area to be closed on Sunday to Thursday at midnight, which is the same time as the closing time for those days, and Friday to Saturday, 0:30, same time as closing time for those days. How will it be practical for the business to ensure patrons are dispersed in a timely manner for closing when the closing time for the back shisha area is the same time as the closing time for the premises? Just one last point. One of the objectors mentioned at page 61 of the agenda pack that security had not been seen at the weekend, although one of the conditions is for a door supervisor to be present from 9 o'clock Friday to Saturday until close. Have door supervisors been present at that?
Yes, we want inline security assisted with some of the paperwork for the security side. I wanted to adapt it as best practices to make sure that they dovetail with my client's operational procedures that I wrote. So I had a meeting on site to go through with security the different forms that we required from them. So yes, I absolutely can confirm there are security on site. Are they a high presence on the front door, big lads? No, it's commensurate with the style of the business, which is a restaurant and bar.
Thank you. I'll now be taking questions from the objectors for the applicants. Yeah, if you can come to the front. Whoever wants to ask a question. And if you can just introduce yourself as well before you ask the question.
Brian Barnes.
Mr. Barnes? Yep, so what's your question to the applicant?
Should I cover the drinking or the shisha, Mark? Do you want to do the drinking or shall I cover the shisha? I'll do the shisha part. Yeah. I'm a little bit confused. I thought the shisha was supposed to close at 10:30 and then they go into the other area, but I'm hearing 12 o'clock. I'm confused.
We're discussing the variation that's been applied for, which I've set out.
Okay.
What they're asking for is for the 10:30 closure on the shisha area to be removed and for that to be replaced with the ability to open until midnight, Sunday to Thursday, and past midnight, Friday and Saturday night.
Right. Okay. Okay, midnight. The security, how many do you have?
Depending on the evening, two.
Two. I've never seen them.
Have
I've
you
generally
been-
never seen them.
Sorry, if you can, because it sounds like you're cross-examining, if you can
Oh.
just direct
Okay.
and be clear with your question so that we can get a clear answer. Thank you.
Okay.
You've asked me the question, let me answer it. There's normally one on the front door and one on the inside, standard procedures.
Okay, yeah, because because we've obviously been having problems on our road, Coburg Road. So you're not seeing some of your clients doing like little revvings and making up noise on the road, and that has picked up. Unfortunately, it has picked up. I'm a little bit confused there. Am I just firing questions at him?
No. What question do you have? If you can, please be clear and succinct with your questions. Do you have any further questions?
No, I just want to put forward my.
You'll
My-
come to your
my part of it.
statement in due course. But if you have any further questions, or
Yeah,
else I'll move
yeah,
on to your.
not really. I just want to present my part.
Okay,
and
That's fine.
finish.
All right, I'll move on to. Yep. Can you introduce yourself, please?
Yes, there's 2 points I want to make. Now, prior to the,
Could you tell us your name, please?
come again,
Could you just tell us your name? Could you introduce?
name?
Yes,
Sheikh Sabrati.
thank you.
Prior to the closing time, every establishment that I've been to is a winding down period, right? Now, which is sensible because for the staff and for the establishment, it's an ongoing thing. Why should they serve alcohol up until closing time? Because that's what they want. The District 22 wants to sell alcohol up until closing time. It don't make sense. It's ridiculous.
So what's your question to?
Yes, it's ridiculous because no alcohol should be sold up until closing time because some people drink more than others. They don't drink all the same.
Mr. Suprati, if you can just make your question clear, and you'll come to your statement when.
Shall I address it to him?
Yes, so if you can just ask the question rather than make a statement, please.
Your clients want to extend drinking up until closing time. Is that right?
That is actually
Is that right?
Mr.
Well,
Sepretti,
if it-
Mr.
If
Sepretti,
it's
please.
correct,
Mr. Sepretti,
Incorrect.
for your clients, why,
See?
yeah,
I'm just giving you.
yeah,
a
but I'm
warning.
saying I'm not finished yet. They've had plenty of
Excuse
time
me,
on the floor
Mr.
yet.
Sepretti, I'm allowing you to ask a question, but you're cross-examining the applicant. Can you
I'm not
please just-
finished.
Mr. Sepretti, you'll have your chance to speak when it comes to the objector's chance. This is just time for questions. So what is your question?
My point is this, you do not sell alcohol up until the time the establishment closes. It doesn't make any sense, it's ludicrous.
Okay, that is your statement, but I needed a question. Do you have any further questions?
Yes, I have another point.
Okay, is it a point or is it a question? Because this is just the time for questions. You'll have your time to make your points afterwards. So do you have a question for the applicant?
Yes,
What is the question?
my second point is this, the shisha area, right? It's supposed to close at 10:30, right? Because prior to that, that's where all the noise was coming. Now, why didn't your clients get it all insulated inside, soundproofed? Why? Because they didn't want to spend the money, did they? That's what it looks like.
Mr. Sepretti, okay, you're not asking the direct questions, you're making statements now. If you don't have any further questions, I'm just going to leave it at that. You can make your statement when it's your turn, yeah?
Well, to be quite honest, I'm very disappointed. I'll tell you why I'm disappointed with them.
Okay, Mr. Sepretti, you can say that when it comes to your chance to speak, yeah? All right, thank you. Any further points of
Chair, I
clarification?
mean, if I can give some reassurance on point number one, of course, we're not asking for an extension at the back end of the day. We are simply asking to commence the sale of alcohol in this application from 11 in the morning. So we're not asking to extend the hours at the back end in the evening. That's not the application. It's from 11 in the morning.
To what time?
Sorry?
From 11 to what time?
We're not extending the hours at all for the terminal hour.
For the alcohol?
For the alcohol, it's
11 to...
If you can ask your questions through the chair, please. Yeah, so do you have any?
What exactly time is it? 11 to what time?
Yes.
Can I interject and just clarify? So the application is seeking the start of alcohol from 11 a.m. each day. Yes. At the moment, the start of alcohol is 4 p.m. each day. And so it's extending from the early part of the day from 11 a.m. The finishing times are remaining the same. So Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, alcohol sales fee cease at 23:30. And that's on Sunday as well. So Sunday through to Thursday. And then Friday and Saturday, alcohol sales to cease at midnight. And to answer Mr. Sabretti's point, so with the alcohol finishing on Sunday to Thursday at 23:30, the business is then, the hours that it then closes to the public is half an hour later at midnight. And then on a Friday and a Saturday night, it's half an hour later at midnight.
That answers my question.
Thank you. I'm most grateful for that. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Barrett, and I'm glad it answers the question. If there are no further questions, we'll move on to the objectors. We will hear from the submissions from the objectors. We will have the questions after the objectors have spoken. If you can introduce yourself before you speak and then present your submission. Please remember you have around 8 minutes each. So we'll start with Mr. Barnes.
Hi there. Yeah, so I was obviously listening to what he was saying there. 11 a.m. to what time? Oh yeah, so that's been answered. Yeah. Right, yeah, with your clients, they would have been informed about the history of the place from way back when. So it shouldn't have been a surprise that there was a problem with the shisha area, because the shisha area has been an outstanding problem, not just from you guys, but from prior businesses before that. So that area has always been a problem. Yet, even though you guys have been informed, it's still a problem. So this is what I don't understand, why you guys haven't dealt with that area.
Mr. Barnes, if you could address the subcommittee.
Oh.
Address the committee, please.
Yeah, so this is why you haven't, this is why I don't understand why that area hasn't been dealt with, because that's been a major problem for us. And as for like these tens, we never knew that was happening. They got 7 tens. We didn't know that was happening. On 3 occasions, I called out complaining about the noise and so forth, but I did not know you had a special license. But we were hearing noise from that. I was even hearing noise from your customers. I was hearing voices from there, and I'm assuming the roof was open. I'm guessing the roof was probably open, because I've not heard guesses. I've not heard voices from that area for a while. Not the voices. I've been hearing the music, but not the voices. But I actually heard that. So I don't know if the roof was open. Maybe it was, but the roof was open, and that was on the 28th. When I did make that complaint on the 28th, again, I didn't know about the 10s. I heard the noise. I made a complaint. So it's not no makeup stuff. I heard the noise. At the time when I said to the operator, I said the noise is there. I'm hearing the voices from there, from the 28th. Also, the next point, noise level on Coburg. The noise level on Coburg Road from the traffic has actually dropped. But unfortunately, because the traffic noise has actually dropped, we could hear your activities even more. We could actually hear it even more. So it's because the caramel has closed down.
Mr. Barnes,
So
sorry to
forth.
stop
Oh,
you.
sorry,
If you could
talking
just
to you.
address it,
Yeah,
yeah.
sorry, I have it.
It's okay.
Sorry, I have it. Yeah, so where we could actually hear your business activities even more. Yes, I think you're trying. I'm trying not to look over there. I think you're trying, but we're still hearing the noises. And this is something, my mum is 84 years old. We need that to be dealt with. Our road is of an older age. It's not a road like young people, single people. We've got people of elders of 84 years, 70 years living on that road. So if you're gonna do something like that, that's not the road for it. Where it's an older age road. It's not a young age road. So the council has a duty of care to hear what we're saying, and we are the residents on that road. But as I said, we've not been informed about the 10. So when I was making the complaints, I wasn't aware of that. So there was noise coming from that area, regardless of what they're saying. And from my report, from my notes, and from my list of complaints, a lot of them are from the latter stage, run up to when they were getting those 10s licenses from their customers. Unfortunately, revving. It's a shame that security don't come around and check around on Coburg Road. But some of those cars are quite loud. There was a comedian show where 6 guys were getting into one car. It was comical. It took them 5 minutes to get into the car. And then when they did finally get into the car, make up noise, gone. And you know, I know I've got the guy's number, but I don't want to be calling every minute. Why should I be calling every minute when there's something going on? I could hear the music on street level and from our property. So I don't know. I don't know. I will say this: the noise from their building has come down. I will give you that. It has come down, but that should not be something to celebrate. It should be the standard. It should be the standard. So please sort out that area. We've been having this problem for years, and we're still getting it. We're still having to address that. So please sort that area out. I think that's it for me, man. I mean, you've got all my notes there. Like I said, if you look at my complaints, it links up to when they get their 10s. It links up running to prior when they get their 10s, because I'm looking at my notes now from when we're getting the complaints. Fireworks was let off on New Year's, on Christmas Eve from your building. I don't know what that was about. I don't know what that was about, but anyway. So, you know, like I said, my notes are quite clear. I'm matching up all the dots. It's clear. There is a problem there. I'm going to cut because let someone else speak. I think I'm going to have to go.
Thank you, Mr. Barnes.
Chair, may I just ask Mr. Barnes a couple of questions
Uh,
before he goes?
You could ask me one question because I've got to go. Ask me a question.
Over the past 12 months, have you ever had occasion to call the police for crime and disorder in the area?
Sorry?
Over the past 12 months, have you had to call the police for any crime and disorder in the area?
Crime disorder. There was one time where I had to call the police where this guy threatened me.
In the last 12 months?
Yeah, that was in the last 12 months. I'm not sure, to be honest, I'm not sure if it was from your place or it was from another place, but this guy outside our house threatened me and I had to call the
And I
police.
think that was in your report. But of course, what about since my clients have got their licence? Have you had any calls to call the police?
But that's what I'm saying, in the last 12 months, I've had to call the police for that.
How many times have the noise department from the council, the out of hours team, validated your complaint of the noise?
I don't know what you mean by validate. Every time I call the noise team out, they've come, well, sometimes they don't come because they're overworked. But, you know, we live in the area. We can hear the noise. It's not, you know, it's not, we're the residents. We can hear the noise.
Can I ask that?
Mr. Dunn, if you could come through
Yes, sorry.
me, yes, please.
Could you confirm that the noise team asked to visit your front bedroom upstairs to see if they could hear any noise from the windows and you refused them?
Well, my mum is in that room and we don't want strangers just walking in at all hours of the night. Yeah, so.
Okay, that's understood.
Yeah.
Do members have any questions before Mr. Barnes had to leave?
Yeah, go ahead.
I mean, yeah, kind of following that point, obviously, you're talking about revving of car engines, which, yes, will happen in 5 minutes and then go. Specifically, this application that the applicants are going for is an extension of the time of the shisha lounge, or the back garden, whatever we want to call it. So I kind of want to know the specific problems with extending the extension of that to removing the condition that closes earlier than the rest of the
It
pub.
seems to relate to every time they apply for a TENS or whatever special activity, we seem to get problems. And when you look at my notes, it relates to that. Even a couple of days before that, there seems to be a problem, which is a shame because there was their clients were actually middle of the year last year, they were going home quietly and so forth. So they were like, yeah, they were going home, even though we're still hearing the noise from the thing, but they were going home quite quietly. But from October onwards, there's been a gradual incidences, and these guys were outside our house. So I'm thinking, come on, you can see the house. What are you doing?
Mr. Dunn, please wait. We've got Councillor Blake.
Mr. Barnes, so you said that you hear music.
Yes.
So what kind of music? I mean, is it boom, 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 or or what kind of music is it? But you also, so just answer that and then I've got a couple of quick questions.
Yeah. So at first it was heavier. Now it's gone to a more of a ting, 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 ting. It's a consistent ting, 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 ting. And like I said, the noise level of traffic has dropped on our road now because that other place has closed down and it's not as, so it's really starting to get back to how it was. But that noise is annoying.
And you also said, but you did say, I think, that you thought things were improving. Did I hear you right? Or is there low?
It's a bit of a roller coaster. It's a bit of a roller coaster. That's what I can say. It's a bit of a roller coaster. But because the traffic noise has dropped, we could hear them even more now. And like I said, the voices, it's like maybe if the traffic was heavier, we might have not heard the voices from the establishment, but I don't know. But noise travels upwards, so
And just one.
I'm gonna have to go.
I know, that's why I'm being quick. So one last question is, you talk about the clients in the street revving up and all of that, you know, getting in cars and revving up. What annoys you most? Is it that, or is it the noise that comes from the restaurant bar? What?
Well,
or is it both?
we shouldn't really be putting up with any of it. We're residents. We've got elders on the road. I'm old school. I'm about, you should respect your elders. Respect the people that live in the area. If I'm driving my car, I turn down my music. As soon as I hit the residential area, my music is that, and I love my music. I turn my music down when I hit the residential area because you treat people how you would want to be treated. But these youngsters, they've got no sense. No sense.
Thank you, Mr. Barnes. I understand that you need to
Yeah,
go, so thank you so much.
Gotta go.
Ms. Barrett, did you want to provide a clarification?
Well, can I just do a point of clarity? It's okay, Mr. Barnes. I know you need to go, but Mr. Barnes has mentioned the issue about the background noise and so forth. Can I just point out, just for clarity? So appreciate, Mr. Don, that we don't have the version 1 document here. So I don't know if in the version 1 document, a proper background assessment had been done of what it's like in the surrounding area, the premises, of what the background levels are on over a period of time, because that's what normally happens. You would go and assess for a month in an area what the background levels are, and then you're then able to then work out, you know, if it's, but then, you know, we're not talking about a large event here, we're talking about a pub. And, you know, with all good intentions, I know your guys are using the monitoring thing, but it's of no real value other than for them to be making some assessments for themselves, really. If the baseline information is not there to begin with and been set up with the environment health officer for there, then it's of no real value.
The noise risk assessment plan was based on a licensing application, not planning. So whilst I accept that under the planning regime, which is completely separate, for developments, one might require a noise impact assessment. We've not done that. We are simply monitoring the way in which we can reduce the noise. We all know that Maze Road is particularly busy. We know Coburg is busy. You've got an industrial estate immediately behind my client's premises. We didn't think at the time it was necessary because at the end of the day, it's the actual readings. And we're only trading through to midnight. It's not as if we're trading through till 3 in the morning. That might have a significant difference between the background noise ambient, because there's less traffic, than generally up until about midnight, 1 o'clock in the morning.
That's fine. So that, to be honest, the same thing can be achieved by the operative, therefore just going outside the premises and standing at their own facade and listening to see if noise is escaping from their premises, to be honest.
60 decibels is about where we're at now in terms of the room. And the difference would be is if cars are going backwards, then the difference would be even less. Now, obviously, as we're running through till 2, 3 in the morning, there's less traffic about, although I'm not so sure about Maze Road. I think they're still going to be busy. But in Coburg Road, it is likely that the level of traffic will drop. I accept that. So if we're still recording 60 decibels outside Mr. Barnes' residence or John Aldi's house, then that might seem a difference if somebody's talking. But 60 decibels is actually relatively quiet. A nightclub will run at 85, 90, 100, festivals in excess of 110 decibels. But 60 decibels, 55, 60 is normal noise.
Thank you, Mr. Don. We'll move on to the objectors' submissions. Sheikh Subrati. Mr. Sheikh Subrati, if you can just introduce yourself, and then you've got,
You or them.
if you can
Yeah.
address the committee, please. You've got 8 minutes. Thank you.
The Shisha area, beg your pardon, the Shisha area in the District 22 is a very crucial area. We know that. We know that already, right? But the thing is, why hasn't the District 22 got it soundproofed? They've had plenty of time to do it. Yes, it costs money, but it's a good investment. Soundproof it inside, not on top, inside, because most people would do the inside, not the outside, because that's where the noise is coming from. It's a very crucial area to them, right? But that's where the noise has been coming from, right? Even I've reported to the noise team, right, on occasions, and they're justifiable complaints. I don't complain for nothing. I live just across, right? Mr. Barnes just lives next door to me, right? If there wasn't any noise coming from there, I wouldn't complain. But the work should have been done from the very, very first. So no noise, it would cushion the noise. That's a very crucial area, right? So on the front, right, of where the entrance on the main road, that's where the Shisha area is, because it's on top, they've done some work, but that's a DIY job. That's on the cheap. The real work should have been done inside, and the council should have inspected it, and the sound engineer would have known about soundproofing, the decibels, right? And people talking, what Mr. Barnes mentioned. So I've heard, I live here, I live in that road, right? I've lived there for a number of years, and I've seen changes in that road from not just District 22, other people there. And I think in the long run, it's a white elephant. I don't think these people understand what they've got involved with, because other people have been there. They've gone. It's very, very important that work gets done inside. It's crucial. And no noise will be heard, no complaints. Simple as that.
We've got one other person as well. Mr. Don, we'll come to the questions once everyone's spoken. We only did the exception with Mr. Barnes because he had to leave early. But Mr. Ward, if you could please make your submissions, please introduce yourself to the committee and address the committee. You've got 8 minutes.
Yeah. My name is Charlie Ward. I'm a local resident. And I'm objecting to the licence extension. My first point is that the licence itself was hearing was only about 3 months ago. It was long, detailed and fair, and it took account of the applicant's request, but also the objections or the concerns of the local residents. On the basis of that, a licence was granted with restrictions. And as I say, and we'll hear again shortly afterwards, I mean, the application itself was put in over a month ago. So there's been no time to review how it's been operating. It's also been done over the winter months, which would be traditionally a quieter period. So for the conditions that were imposed, they should, from my point of view, be monitored over a longer period of time when it gets busier, spring, summer or whatever, rather than simply almost immediately overwritten, you know, against the wishes of, say, the original committee. The next point, and the statement, I was disappointed to see a statement was made again about Maze Road being busy at all times of the day. I actually corrected this at the last meeting. yes, during the day, Maze Road is busy because of Colbert Road, industrial estate, traffic from there. There's various building works. Then there's all the through traffic, people going to Wood Green shopping, commuting, school runs, etc. But that's all died down by about 7 or 8 o'clock at night, and Wood Green, Maze Road reverts to a quiet residential road. I'd classify it as. So the only extraneous noise after about that time is from this establishment. So it's not being cancelled out by the traffic. That's just not true. During the day, yeah, but that's not the problem area. The problem area is late at night. So I just want to correct that misassumption. I think also I was classified as, in one of the papers, as living on the far side of Maze Road, as if out of sight, out of mind. But in fact, I live virtually directly opposite the premises, rather than far away. But the second point on that, even if I live further away, I think I still have a right to comment on an application in my local area. And even if it doesn't impact me directly, you know, still can have concerns for other relatives, residents, like Brian's family and that. Yeah, so it shouldn't just be people's own individual selfish impact overall. I think I'll leave it at that. That's summarising my.
Thank you, Mr. Ward. Do members have any questions for the objector? Yeah, Councillor Bucks.
Yeah, same as what I asked Mr. Barnes to both of you. I mean, to focus in specifically on the review of this application, even I know we're talking about earlier hours in the day, but I would like to specifically know the impacts that you think that extending the hours of the back garden will have on which is what the review is for this licensing committee. I understand from Sheikh your points that you kind of want the inside soundproofed better, but I want to understand what the knock-on effects of that is to your views on the back shisha lounge, the back garden having extended hours, which is what we're deciding tonight.
As I've stated already, right, if the work had been done in the first place, right, it's not a big thing to ask because I think it's an investment. If you want to have all these events, right, people make noise. Some people make noise more than others, right? All that noise could have been muffled. Soundproofing costs money, but it's an investment. It's a sound investment. Anybody with any sense would have done it. Yes, it costs money, but I don't think District 22 want to spend that money inside. Frankly, I don't think they have the money. I think it's juggle here, juggle there, and a lot of the work's been done on the outside. That's been done on the cheap, right? You can buy all this stuff, you know, and do it yourself. But the thing is, they use their own people to do the work.
And specifically, what is your objection to the extension of the back garden, which is what we're reviewing now?
It's the time as well, right? Because the thing is, I know what people are like. I know a lot about psychology of people, right? Some people will try and extend the time. And by allowing people to drink up to closing time, that's not a winding down period. You need a winding down period, right? So people understand there's no alcohol or even food sold. So when the time for them to go, they go. They might not like it. Some people will moan, But most people would respect that. You're running an establishment, you've got to run it in a proper way, and that's time management. The winding down period is time management. Good management would know that. You see all these pubs, Witherspoons and all them, they don't serve drinks after a certain time because there'll be people out,
Yeah, I understand that. That's not,
Yeah.
we've
which
already
makes
had-
sense,
we've
which
already-
makes a
yeah.
lot of sense.
It's okay.
Sorry, we've already had the clarification that there is a winding down period.
Yes,
Yeah, we've already had that
it's a
clarification.
crucial time.
Why, yeah, thank you. Which I think we're all in agreement
I mean,
here of that.
you've been
Yeah.
to the pubs, haven't you?
Yep.
Where they wind down.
Thank you, Sheikh. Has he answered your question?
Not quite,
What?
because I am specifically asking, the review here is to remove the condition on the back shisha lounge, which currently is clearing out patrons at 10:30, and therefore allowing, if we remove that condition tonight, that would allow patrons to stay in the back garden until, is it midnight? Midnight or midnight 30 on Fridays and Saturdays. So what I'm asking
So what you're saying, right, is when so from 10:30, they move to that area. Is that what you're saying?
no, I'm saying that they're still allowed, that currently, so I don't know whether you want to clarify this better.
Yeah.
Barrett, if you can
Yeah.
clarify,
But
please.
the thing is, I think what you,
Sheikh, let Ms. Barrett just clarify.
So, sorry, so in effect, so they're asking for I call it the shisha area, and I'm Mr. Don is trying to say it was something else today, beer garden. Yeah, so for that area, basically, to be used until midnight, Sunday through to Thursday. At the moment, it's closing at 10:30, but if this variation is agreed to, they will go through till midnight. Sorry? Sunday through till Thursday till midnight, and then Friday and Saturday till midnight is what's being requested.
I think what Councillor Buxton's saying, how would this extension of time impact you as residents? So I think that's the question, if we can have your answer to that.
quite honest, I think there will be an impact. I think there will be impact. Whenever that will be, I don't know, because I don't have a lot of faith in District 22. They should have done the real work inside, which they haven't done. Now they want all these concessions. That works both ways. It's not a one-sided street. We live there. They don't live there. They can go anytime they want. They're not residential there. They might operate a business there. They don't live there. I live there. So I know what I'm talking about.
Thank you. Mr. Ward, did you want to add anything?
Just to say, to reiterate my first point, there has been insufficient monitoring, from the original licence to determine the impact on things before we look to an extension. But on the specific point, what it will be doing will be dispersing the disturbance impact of people leaving to much later on, certainly, which will affect, certainly, I'd assume, most elderly residents already being in bed in that or settling down for the night, plus people that need to get up early in the morning and that. As I say, I can't imagine it's unique, but that sort of area, yes, it's a busy thoroughfare during the day, but it quiets down in the evening at night, so it's just like a quiet side street. And now you're talking about, because if it's gone on till midnight, you're probably talking about up till 1 o'clock to disperse all the clientele. So that's the direct impact I would see with the granting of the extension.
Thank you. Councillor Blake, do you have
No
any further questions? My only question is, I understand that one of the conditions for the applicant is to provide a direct contact number in case you do have any complaints. Have you been provided that number? And if so, have you been in contact with the applicant about any of your complaints?
I've not been provided with any contact details.
Sorry, Chair,
Okay.
can I give some clarity to that?
Yeah.
Because I know for a fact that Mr. Barnes, obviously he's now left, but Mr. Barnes has been given the contact details. So much so that when he actually did ring to complain at one point, he had just been making his complaints directly to the premises and not ringing the noise out of hours team at the time. So, yeah, so there's been like months from the license was granted, Mr. Barnes was actually just going directly to the business and not coming to the council because he was making direct contact with them.
And Chair, in respect of the last hearing, all the paperwork sent through to us was all the addresses, names and addresses were redacted. We had no contact details. Having reviewed your statement of licensing policy, this time Mrs. Barrett has very kindly shared that information with us. Obviously, it's a public meeting, so we're not going to share that out, but that number is readily available.
Thank you for the clarification. Does the applicant have any questions for the objectors?
Yes. But Mr. Sheikh, I appreciate that this is a public meeting, so please don't disclose actually where you live. But in terms of your flat, is it the first flat in the building, or is it on the far side?
Coburg Road,
Yes.
right? On that side, on the right-hand side. I live on the other side, right?
You live on the other side. Could you just explain to the committee what that means when you say you live on the other side?
Well, just past where the District 22 is, there's companies. There's a gym and all the companies, right? But it's on this side where the people are, not on that side.
Adjacent to Mr. Barnes' property.
Yes. Mr. Barnes lives next door. I live
So
before him.
within that complex, would you just share with the committee, where is your flat? Is it actually fronting onto Coburg Road, or is it further in the complex?
Coburg Road. On the right-hand side.
Thank you. And
Thank you.
a second question for me. Over the last 3 months, since the license was granted to my clients, how many complaints have you made to the noise team?
Round about 10. 10 complaints.
And what was the nature of those complaints?
I think the noise team only saw me once. I spoke to them by phone. They gave me a number. That's it.
Sorry for clarity, you only spoke to the noise team once.
I spoke to them on 10 times. They come and saw me on one occasion because they've got other places to go around. So it's a matter of priority.
Mr. John, do you have any further
I
questions?
do for this, Mr. Ward. Mr. Ward, obviously we know where you live. Can you hear any noise currently from the garden area?
I probably don't know because I'm in Maze Road, so my concerns are more at dispersal time, and obviously music does pick up later.
Reading the application, would you be happy if Ms. Barrett just explained to you that there's no actual increase in the operation of the business? We're not increasing hours overall. It's just specifically the application is to increase the hours at the end of the evening in the garden area only. The hours already exist in the current operation.
For me, the concern with that is this was discussed in length and detail 3 months ago, and taking all the evidence, the committee then decided this was the best way forward. And we've had a 3-month period, probably the quietest time of a business, and there needs to be an increased monitoring to say, because over the years there's been, yes, your new owners, but there's been several owners, and the pattern of behaviour and problems has been consistent. So I'd say, no, I'm against any increase at this time because it's just not been monitored at busy times and the impact. And I think Brian says he noticed that at times when temporary licenses were granted, there was an increase in noise and disturbance and that. So
but would it be?
Mr. Dunn, just bearing in mind the time that we have, how many further questions do you have?
Just
One more, okay.
For the question. So when the temporary event notice is on, it didn't cause you any concern. You've only found out about this from Mr. Barnes.
Well, he's mentioned the disturbance. I can't remember.
No further questions, Chair.
Thank you. We'll now move on to the summary. Can each party please sum up, starting with the licensing officer, then the objectors, and finally the applicant? Please keep succinct and please address the committee. Thank you.
Chair, I have no additional matters that I wish to bring to the committee's attention.
Thank you. Mr. Suprati.
I think it's an exercise in damage limitation of what's gone on this tonight, right? I can understand that. Because when they first went there, District 22, it was mad. They didn't start off in the right way. And yet, they've been given plenty of leeway. Now, if they don't get it, right, if they don't stop that noise, I shall go on complaining to the noise team, which I've got every right to do. It impacts me. I'm trying to do something on my laptop, and yet I'm getting disturbed. I shouldn't have to put up with that. It's ridiculous. And quite frankly, we've got enough bars and restaurants already. It was never cut out for that. Since the Duke of Edinburgh, it's not cut out for that at all. It was never intended for that purpose. So I think it's a white elephant.
Thank you, Mr. Suprati. Mr.
Nothing to add to what I've said already.
Thank you. And now the applicant, if you can please sum up.
Thank you, Chair. In conclusion, this is an application to vary the licence in two parts. Firstly, to grant the permission, the authorisation of the sale of alcohol from 1100 hours each day instead of the current 1600. That's part one of the application, and part two is the use of the rear beer garden area. We've asked to extend the use, to remove the condition, which facilitates the use of that rear area to the public house. It's not an increase overall in hours. The operation still runs as it does, permitted under the current licence, but we are asking to remove that restriction. You have heard that there are some residents that oppose it. There's no evidence, there's no sound recordings, there's just a catalogue of complaints. You will know from the noise team, actually, these have not been validated. And the most recent incident was on Saturday, where they turned up while Mr. Barnes was on the phone. They got out the car, heard nothing, spent 35, 40 minutes in the premises just checking various documents, of which I think some have been sent to Ms. Barrett. And there wasn't a nuisance. Mr. Sheikh made point to soundproofing. Actually, there's a huge amount of development. You will see from the photographs in the business that actually there are solid walls on the outside of the premises that have decoration and soundproofing and so on. And the fact that the aperture relating to the smoking area actually is over the far side away from the noise sensitive premises. We are committed to not causing a nuisance. To that end, we've created a noise risk assessment for which we regularly take recordings over the weekends when we have security on, and they will see an acceptable level of decibels. You have 4 residents that complain. Mr. Barnes is a vociferous, continuous complainer, and you've got his name on record for numerous complaints forever, for years. I can understand and have a lot of sympathy with him back in the day when it was trading as a nightclub, effectively, through till 3 in the morning. But this is a different operation. It's a restaurant, bar and lounge bar. That's it. It's a much more toned down table service type environment. My clients have invested in soundproofing, and it is, from our noise readings, it would appear that that has been effected. In terms of, yes, so Mr. Barnes is a serial complainer. Our friend here, Mr. Ward, has said, well, he's actually had no cause to complain. It doesn't affect him. He's simply joining in with Mr. Barnes, as is his right to say that there may be complaints. We hear from Mr. Sheikh that he has made complaints, but only one to the noise team have come out to see. The fact is, it's been a public house for 100+ years. It's always been a licensed premises. I accept that the condition was imposed at the last meeting, and I'm not saying that it should be a review of that decision, but you will be aware that the matter is going before the magistrates on appeal. And that is a consideration. We would ask that you consider the evidence, and in my view, that the residents have not produced evidence of an existing problem. We haven't had any correspondence from the noise team to say that we are at risk of a noise abatement notice. There's no action been taken. We haven't had correspondence from the noise team at all from Environmental Protection. And also I would ask you to note that the police, licensing, Environmental Protection and any of the other responsibilities have not made an objection. And we have conducted 7 temporary event notices to the hours that we've applied for, and we've not caused any problems. And we would ask you to give weight to that, because that is clear evidence that we can demonstrate that we are not causing a problem operating the business in the style that we do. Chair, that is my submission.
Thank you so much. Thank you all. We have now come to the end of this item. The parties from this item may now leave, as we will move on to the next item. The parties of this item will be notified of the decision in writing within 5 working days of this meeting. Thank you all. We will now take a brief adjournment of 5 minutes. Thank you. Hi, all. Welcome back. Now on to the 7th item, which is the application for a variation of a premises license at Lounge 34 High Street, London, N8 Hornsey. Before I move on, just to make sure everyone has their videos open so we can, yep. Please keep yourselves on mute and please do not use the chat function to ask questions. Only if you have any technical issues. Thank you. Ms. Barrett, please can you introduce the report?
Thank you, Chair. Just a moment. Chair, before we start, I think I need to raise with you that the applicants sought to submit today some additional documents. I don't know if Mr. Sims and Mr. Gajana wishes to speak with the panel first to get that matter squared away.
Is Mr. Sims present?
Hi, we are here.
Sorry, Chair. So there's a couple of issues here, Chair. So we have the issue of the late documents that were received today. That obviously, because it's on the day of the hearing, we are unable to accept it and it's going to be at the Chair's discretion. The other issue that's arisen, Chair, is that since this application was submitted, you have in the pack, Chair, the plan that was submitted with the application. And it is a requirement under the Licensing Act regulations that the plan that's submitted should be reflective of the premises. Once this application had closed its consultation period, and in fact, this matter, I think, has been tabled for a hearing on 4 different occasions now. And on one of those occasions, we received some additional photographs from Mr. Sims and Mr. Gajana, and in them were photos showing work that has been carried out to the rear, the garden area of the premises. So a structure has been built in that garden area that was not shown on the plan that was submitted for this application. Nothing was mentioned on the application about that rear area either. So as a result of that, none of the RAs or anybody else that saw this application were aware of this structure being there. So the question is really if the panel feel that they want to go ahead with this meeting and hear this matter this evening, knowing that really the regulations have not been followed because the plan was not submitted and correctly showing the layout for the premises that they are now requesting this license for.
Thank you, Ms. Barrett. If I can have legal comments.
Yep, the plan is at page 148, Annex 4. As I understand it, the drawing in question, in particular, the bit marked garden area at the top on the left-hand side, is no longer reflective of the actual condition of the premises. So in effect, the application hasn't been made correctly. So it is a matter for you whether you wish to adjourn it off again for further application to be made or amended, or for you to hear it again, or for you to go ahead with it at present.
Before I request an adjournment, can I just get some reasoning for the late inclusion of the additional document from the applicant and why that was necessary? If you can just clarify that before we move on.
Thank you, Chair. The reason for the late submission of the noise impact assessment, I believe Ms. Dahlia is referring to, was because we received it from the noise acoustic company on the 27th of January, approximately, I think it's at 5 or 6 o'clock in the evening. Hello, can you hear me?
Yeah, I'm listening. I'm listening.
Yeah, so we received the documents from the acoustic company on the 27th, which was Friday, just gone. Once we received it, we emailed it across As you can see, if you've seen the document itself, it's dated and signed by the acoustic company on that date, and they released it to us. And once we had it, we provided it to the local authority.
Thank you.
Chair, can I?
Did you want to add or make a point of clarification?
Yes. Also, in relation to some of the images of the premises, the images that have been provided are computer-generated or CGI images of how the premises will look. So obviously, the architect has done all the drawings, and then he done a 3D, essentially a walkthrough of how the premises will look in its final form. And then in relation to the structure at the back, we've had a meeting with the planning department, who informed us that we will need to submit a document planning application, which we have done. Essentially, what is at the back of the premises is a cover. So where the garden area was literally a garden area, there was no cover, there was no shelter. There's been a shelter built. I mean, essentially, we could submit a minor variation to include the garden area as a shelter. Obviously, we live in London. In order to utilize any garden area, you need a space where people could sit away from, you know, the elements outside. So that's basically the shelter at the back. We've not built a massive extension on the property or the premises. It's literally a shelter at the bottom of the garden area in order for customers to sit, in order for tables to be placed there so they don't get wet and exposed to the elements.
Thank you, Mr. Sims. Legal, yeah.
Yeah, the plan that's submitted with the application has to reflect the plan of the premises to which the application relates. So the relevant legislation is Section 23 of the Licensing Act 2003, in brackets premises licensing and club premises certificates regulations 2005. I can read the particular section if you want, but essentially the plan has to show the extent of the boundary of the building, if relevant, the location of points of access to and egress from the premises. In case where the premises to be used for more than one licensable activity, the area within the premises used for each activity, fixed structures or similar objects temporarily in a fixed location. And if the plan is supposed to be what it's supposed to look like, then it's not a plan of the premises. It's not reflective of the application. I'm afraid it doesn't comply with the relevant legislation.
Thank you for that, Ms. Barrett.
Chair, I would just, you know, this is a matter that has been raised. Had Mr. Sims not sent through the photos, I know he's saying some of them are modified photos, but they are photos of the premises as they've been refurbished. The planning officer has been and visited and actually emailed back with his list of enforcement matters that he wants and has asked Mr. Gajana to address, which is basically to take out all the stuff he's actually put into the premises because he's, you know, made the additional structure in the backyard without planning permission. He's done changed the facade at the front and so forth, which I know is planning matters. But again, there is quite an extensive list from the planning officer of things that Mr. Gajano is required to put right. But in terms for us, had the various responsible authorities and in fact residents as well had known that the outside area there was going to be built on and be used for license for activities and in that area and so forth, that it would have had a different outcome as to the kind of reps that it would have attracted, because, you know, it's basically denied the various parties the ability to consider that in light of the prevention of public nuisance objective, for instance, because the application was silent on it. So, you know, people have not been able to make any comment in that regard, really.
Ms. Barrett, Mr. Sims, is it a further clarification?
Yeah, if I can, Chair. Essentially, as I said, it's a wooden structure. that is been placed at the back of the garden. The boundary line and any exit or ingress into the premises itself hasn't changed at all. We're literally talking about a wooden structure which sits above people's heads. So if it rains, it doesn't impact on anyone that's sitting or standing outside in the garden area.
I think if the panel is in agreement, I think we would need to deliberate this before we decide on an adjournment based on this information. So if it's okay.
Chair, could I also add one
Yes, Mr. Sims.
final thing, please? The noise impact assessment has been included to detail what happens in the garden area and all the tests that have been involved. As I said, it's a wooden structure which is above people's heads. The boundary line and the wall, which is part of the property, hasn't changed. There's an open area in that section of the garden area. It's not fully enclosed, and it has, apart from sheltering someone from the rain, has no real impact in terms of the application.
Thank you, Mr. Sims, but I think we need to deliberate on this new information as it's just come to light. So I think Ms. Barrett, before I move on.
Sorry, I was just going to say, Chair, that obviously I've had the benefit of seeing the noise report that came in today. It does not cover the garden area. I think Mr. Sims needs to have a look at the document. It actually completely misses out the outside space, which would have an impact on nearby residents, and concentrates really on noise affecting nearest residential is what it does from within the built premises itself. Okay.
Thank you, Ms. Barrett. Okay, I am going to propose an adjournment for us to deliberate.
Yes, an adjournment, short adjournment to deliberate on this particular question. Yeah.
A short adjournment to deliberate. Thank you. Thank you all for your patience. The subcommittee, having considered the information having come to light at the start of the hearing and having heard from the licensing officer and the legal officer and having taken points of clarification from the applicant and having noted that the plan submitted with the application on page 148 not being correct or reflective of the current status of the premises and as such in contravention of section 23 of the Licensing Act, Premises, Licenses and Club Premises Certificates Regulations 2005, the subcommittee have decided to adjourn this matter to allow the applicant to submit a proper and correct application. Thank you. We've come to the end of the meeting and of this item.
Thank you, Chair. Bail everybody up. Let them know that it's empty.
Do you want to let everyone know that it's
Let
ended?
everyone know that it's ended.
The licensing subcommittee has now concluded, and I will allow participants to leave the meeting. Thank you.